We should be live. I need someone to tell us if we're live.
Please, somebody out there.
Oh, Nancy Graziano is going to have a root canal.
Yeah, I knew that one.
I had one a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. It was fine, Nancy. It was fine.
Yeah, I consider this a bad thing.
Okay, so everybody watching this now, as Fraser breaks things, as I am wont to do, I have pushed the resolution up to 1080p. So, does it work? That is the question. Does this work?
No. Sorry.
Well, I don't see any dropped frames. My upload speed is 6 to 7,000 kilobits per second. So
Okay.
it's gobbling up a lot of upstream speed. I don't know if it's too much. I wonder how much of my bandwidth this is going to eat up.
Is there anything else in your house trying to be live right now?
Uh, is this too much? Is this too much data? I wonder. Oh well.
Is there such a thing as too much
Well,
data?
I get a terabyte of download speed. I get a terabyte of download every month. So I'll take a look and see how much this is using.
Oh, you have a cap.
A terabyte. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At 100, I have 150 megabits down. So, uh, but you know what? Let's just see what happens. You know what? Yeah. So some people were saying that they couldn't see the Slack chat, so I decided to increase the output speed. You know, it's just double. No, triple. It's about triple what I was using before. So here we go.
It's better font.
How's it going?
I it's a Friday that feels oddly like a Monday. These things happen.
It's a Friday that feels like a Monday.
Yeah.
I don't understand what that means. Like,
It means that like I keep getting thunked by work related things that I wasn't anticipating and the workday seems like it will never end.
well, you've got this enjoyable respite.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Before
That's
we
true.
move on to the madness for the rest of the day.
And if you're in the St. Louis area, there's First Friday at the museum tonight. And as soon as we're done recording, I'm going to be madly going, scurrying about my house to find CosmoQuest related stuff, and then dashing across the river to the St. Louis Science Center for First Friday.
So, can people join? Is this a thing people can
Yes,
join you
this
at?
is an open event.
Sweet.
Yes. So first Friday of every month. And I just happened to forget that like we had suddenly hit November.
Right. Yes. It moves quickly.
Yes.
So we broke a record here. The most rain we've ever had. So
Was that related to the hurricane you had?
well, it's just been storm after storm. Like it's all just you call it a hurricane if you just have a blending of storm after storm. So we had 27 days of rain in October. Right? We had 4 days where it didn't rain. So that's a hell of a thing. And
Yes.
so I was mentioning to the folks in the Weekly Space Hangout that it actually knocked over a tree in our backyard. So one of the storms put a tree over it, and yeah, but it didn't. It could have taken out all the neighbors' houses, uh, our trailer, all kinds of stuff. But it didn't. It just perfectly went down into the back lawn and
Wow.
yeah, went to sleep. So.
Very lucky.
But already we're back at it. So far, we've had every single day of rain so far. So November, if we keep it up, and flooding, yeah, it's been crazy. So that's us here. We don't get those tornadoes, but we sure get rain.
Well,
How's it? And then your weather's been fine.
it's fall, except that it's like been weirdly warm mostly.
Yeah.
So, but I guess I shouldn't complain about weirdly warm unless I like want to
Yeah.
be afraid for the future of our planet. But I mean, mostly we're alternating between bright sunny days and amazing thunderstorms. And I happen to love amazing thunderstorms. So
I'm going to say hi to a bunch of people. Aaron C., Blake FHS, Bob Harkins, Brian Stab, Citizen Gold, Cole Morgan, Diane Bojanic, Daniel McCool, David Joseph Wesley, Dusty Reichwin, Giselle Sabrin, Gregowski, Guido Bibra, Jamie Bradley, John Suffield, Lillian Brennan, Lisa Holland, Nancy Graziano, Noam 101, Oberon Knights here, Ole Jorgen Nordhagen, Quirky Koala, Rick Schwartz, Robert Scott Herrick, Ryosan, Sean Kenny, Tech Tang, Tom Van Scotter, Truck Captain Stumpy, Winout Vanderveer, Joseph Bisk, Unisofree, and Zapfan. So, yo, everybody. Welcome to whatever this is that we're doing right now.
It's a thing.
If it's Friday, it must be Astronomy Cast. Oh, no, we do both on Fridays now. So, okay, so if you're wondering what on earth it is that you have stumbled into, you are going to watch a live episode of Astronomy Cast, our weekly podcast. It's been going for 10 years now. There's all this extra goodness that happens surrounding the actual recording of the episode. We just thought you would find it hilarious to watch us record the episodes live, so we do. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe on the YouTube channel so that you can make sure that you get this. If you prefer your podcast in video form, you can do that. And if you want to know when we're recording so you can interact with us and ask us your questions, go ahead and click on the little notification bell in YouTube, and then you'll get an actual... Your phone will freak out when it's time for Astronomy Cast. Cool. So we'll do the show, and then we'll stick around and talk to you and answer your questions. This is you picked this show just to go after me this week, didn't you?
I did not. It was actually one of these things where I wasn't coming up with a good idea. I was failing to come up with an idea, and I opened Facebook. And face to face with the world of not true, really not true. Do you not know what Snopes is? Not true.
Yeah.
That was where I landed on this idea. So sometimes our shows don't have the most exciting reasons to exist, but this is one of those really necessary shows given the preponderance of terrible news on Facebook and other places, but mostly Facebook.
I just want to remind everybody, man, I should go drink some water. I think I got a frog stuck in my throat. Can you remind everybody about the chat?
Yeah, so while Fraser is going off to get some water, we are trying to build a community for you guys, and we know that YouTube comments, which several of you are like moderating like champs, often get evildoers. So we have created a safe space for fans of the show and fans of the Weekly Space Hangout and Universe Today and CosmoQuest. We're all really one big community, and that safe space is over on the Weekly Space Hangout Slack channel. So if you go over to the Weekly Space Hangout page, and I'm hoping that someone will drop a link to that in the YouTube chat, you can find out how to get involved in the Slack channel. And we put the Slack channel live at the bottom of these episodes so you can see what's the conversation that's going on while we're recording. And I think I managed to time that perfectly.
The other thing I got to warn you is my son is cooking something, and there's a lot of smoke upstairs, so my fire alarm might go off. Don't panic. It's just his overzealous cooking. All right. Are you ready?
I think so. I need coffee. I don't have coffee, but I can press record anyways. I'm pressing record.
All right, here we go. I've also pressed record. Hello, Chad.
Hi, Chad.
All right. Astronomy Cast, episode 427, Clickbait versus Clear Science. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. My name is Fraser Cain. I'm the publisher of Universe Today, and with me is Dr. Pamela Gay, the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Fraser?
Doing fantastic. Are there any more updates for the eclipse, or should we stop talking about it now because everything's sold out?
We have, I think, 3 spaces left of the 100 we made available. So all of you guys are awesome for signing up early and making sure that this is going to be an eclipse trip to remember.
Yeah. So if it hasn't already, hurry. But we do have a Facebook group where you can kind of watch and people will be able to find slots if someone has to cancel. So, but yeah, go to astronomycast.com. There's a link to our events and check it out. All right. So did you hear that dark energy doesn't exist anymore and neither does dark matter? It turns out NASA recalculated the Zodiac and now you're an Ophiuchan. Ophiuchan? Science is hard enough, but communicating that science out to the public when there are publications hungry for traffic is even harder. Here's how to parse the clickbait science titles. So I think I might work with one of these astronomy publications. In fact, I might be the publisher and so be wholly responsible for the titles that run through our publication. But you're not talking about me, right?
No, you never tried to disprove dark energy.
No, we didn't. We were we didn't pull the trigger on that one. We didn't. So we're fine. We're fine then. Yeah.
You're fine.
But boy, you're saying that you were like reading your Facebook page and there was some bad titles.
Yeah, it's one of these things where everything from you can like stop menopause with coffee because apparently when you hit a certain age, these are the things that Facebook tells you, to dark energy doesn't exist, to supernovae don't work the way we thought they worked. They just sort of crop up from well-meaning people who see interesting titles and who doesn't want to have their entire understanding of the universe changed instantaneously. Yeah.
Well, I think the best examples that were recent were that NASA is claiming there's going to be 15 days of darkness in November, which I don't know if you heard about this one.
No.
Yeah. Which is that literally this came out a year ago. Someone just made this up, that there was going to be 15 days of darkness, and it's not real. And yet people have been debunking it, and now it's come back around again a second time. And then the other one is that NASA has recalculated the Zodiac, which I think is hilarious.
And it's not that they recalculated the Zodiac. It's people finally noticed that the Zodiac astrologers are using doesn't match the ones astronomers have been using for a long time.
And NASA had this page, this educational page on their website, and they've had it there for years. And someone just noticed that on one page, NASA mentioned that the actual dimensions of the Zodiac don't match the 12ths of the year, which is just so funny.
Yeah, and then there's the undead Mars will appear bigger than the full moon.
Right, of course, the one that'll never stop. But I think the one that, I mean, those are just ridiculous. You can just ignore them outright. Go ahead. But I think the ones that are trickier are the one that came up in the last couple of weeks was the one that was published, via Oxford, that dark energy doesn't exist, which is a very inflammatory title, and when you actually dig into it, is that's not what it said.
Right. So you often end up, and this can be in any science whatsoever, with a perfectly legit scientist doing perfectly legitimate scientific work that shows this thing we've already been studying looks like it might have a twist, it might have an exception, it might have times when it behaves differently from what we understood, or maybe the data we have just isn't quite as clear as we thought, and so they'll publish a paper about, heads up guys, we need to check this thing out. And then some journalist who's like, oh, wow, the whole universe changed, writes this amazing story making out the thing where the scientist was like, we should look at this, saying, this thing we should look at is totally different. And no, that's not what the scientist
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, and this comes up all the time, and of course we are, we as journalists, now we're talking about the things that I know how to do, and we as journalists, you go through these phases. I think in the beginning you haven't seen enough of the steps go on around and around and around that you're not sort of, you get trapped, you get caught, you get tricked by not only sort of what is your instinct is what this story is telling you, but also sort of the echo chamber of all of these other websites that maybe don't have as much experience in space and astronomy and science, and so they just essentially just they take it at face value, and then you echo what they're saying, and you all are just make mistakes, and then helpful commentators pop out of the woodwork and guide you back to a place where you have a little more a more balanced, nuanced view of how to report this stuff. And I'd like to think that even now, now where we are, the maturity of Universe Today, most of our writing team is pretty good at this, and has enough of the knowledge and has been through this enough times that we can not fall into these mistakes every time. But I would say we do sometimes go after clickbaity titles. We're looking to attract people without lying, and that's the balance that we have to set, because if no one wants to read our stories, then we don't exist.
And what I wish I saw more of was someone taking the clickbait story of like, and dark energy is dead, and then just noping it. Just put the word nope in all caps at the end of the clickbaity title.
Yeah.
So that people just know, nope, not true. But the problem is when you do that, not as many people click on it. And this is kind of how you make your living.
Yes, exactly. That is exactly how I make my living. And we do sometimes. And, there's real value to taking, if you know that there is a very clickbaity thing going on, then you can say, no, the Large Hadron Collider did not just discover the multiverse, right? And then you could explain in the article. And so people are seeing the clickbaity version, and then you're providing the sort of the backlash to the clickbait, and that can be valuable as well. So I think there's there is a sort of a key to it. But we actually it's funny, we put a ton of effort into our titles, like all publications. I'm going to sort of reveal a little bit of our secret. So we test titles on Twitter before we write stories. And so we're trying to figure out what kinds of stories people are interested in. What are the stories that people are excited about? And we'll test that out. And then if we can get a sense of what is really intriguing the readers, and a lot of it is about the title. And then once we know the title, then we know sort of that the story, and even the direction that the story should take. So a lot of that is happening behind the scenes.
Now, where it gets messy is we have real stories like Michael Brown and company uncovering the gravitational yank of a ninth planet, and we have fake stories of and Nibiru is coming to crash into the Earth. And they both involve an additional planet. And how hard does it get to be for your average Joe and Jill to sort through all of the stuff flying past them and know Nibiru bad, Planet 9 by Michael Brown good?
Yeah. So if you are a layperson who is interested in science, interested in space, but doesn't necessarily have the astrophysics degree, what is a way that you can look at this kind of stuff and have some judgment about it?
Well, the first thing you want to do a Google News search on, well, who all is covering this? And if it crops up in the Washington Post, the New York Times, space.com, universetoday.com, if you see that whole suite of sites, you can trust it. If it doesn't crop up in a whole bunch of different sites, then the next thing you want to do is look at the article carefully and see if it has the magical sentence published in, and then look to see what journal it was. And if the journal is a mainstream journal, so monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, astrophysics, astronomy, so it's the Astrophysical Journal, the Astronomy Journal, publications, the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. If it's a mainline journal and it's a scientist from a mainstream university, there's a pretty good chance that it's probably at least seeded with truth, but you
Right.
don't know yet if the author has taken it in a weird direction.
Yeah.
This is where it comes down to, you need to find the story, either the original press release, which often comes out from the American Astronomical Society, or it needs to come from multiple sites.
But at this point, you have already clicked the link. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of, I guess hopefully this is going to stop you from breathlessly sharing it into your feed to continue the virus. And I mean, that's very similar. I mean, that is the way that we go about it when we're actually doing our work as well. Because when we write a story, we need to make sure that it is legitimate science, that it is not pseudoscience by some crackpot. And that it's that exact same thing. So whenever I look at a story, I ask myself, what's the source? Where's this coming from? What is the originating location that this comes from? And then we have to verify and track back everything to its source. So as you said, is it coming out of a university research department? Is it coming out of NASA? Is it something that's coming out of an established journal? Who are the people involved in it? Are they astrophysicists? Are they doing work in this field? How big is the study? How many people were involved in it? How, what kinds of controls did they put into it? The more you can kind of look into, how the research was done, the better chance you have of being able to know if it's reasonable. But that said, there could still be this whole level on top of it that takes what was a nugget of really good science and tweaks it to make it almost mean the opposite sometimes.
And sometimes it's actually originating from the scientists themselves. Back in, I believe it was 2005, there was a scientist who did his work while at Harvard and then published while he was at another university that claimed to have disproven the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, that light is either a particle or a wave when you observe it, and you can't observe it behaving both ways at once. And I happened to be in the room while he did a bunch of experiments, because he borrowed one of my lab spaces to do it at Harvard. And yeah, his experiment allowed you to see in different parts of the light stream the particle behavior of the light and the wave behavior of the light. But all of the headlines saying that he'd disproven the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics was taking a really awesome experiment and giving it the title that, if it was true, would give the guy the Nobel Prize, which, at the end of the day is pretty much every scientist's greatest wish. And he was happy to say he had disproved the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. But pretty much all of the scientists who looked at his results said, we don't see what would disallow this. This is really cool. We're glad you did this. But quantum mechanics is still behaving the same way, guys. So even going back to the scientist can lead you down strange paths at times.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think this is where the Oxford announcement that came out a couple of weeks ago that dark energy wasn't real, or at least that's not the way the Oxford original release went, but sort of the way it was interpreted by the press arm, because that's another piece of the puzzle, right? Is you've got the scientists, they produce a paper, and then somebody, often a non-scientist, has to write a press release that tries to explain the science in the paper to a layman audience that can then get picked up by the newspaper. And sometimes they can make they can come to a conclusion that is not correct, and somehow it gets, it just gets, and then that gets, picked up and multiplied by the general public. And so this is a great example, right? This one, the one by Oxford, it passed, lots and lots of people published it because it sort of met all that criteria, right? It was by journalists, it was by researchers from Oxford. It was published in it was very good research that they did. It was the largest survey that had been done of that scale. So it met all of the requirements, and yet it went virally as overturning dark energy, which was the wrong conclusion to reach.
So we have basically three different problems that we have to watch out for. One is perfectly good scientists doing perfectly reasonable work who correctly state the level of their work, and then have some press person trying to get the university lots of media attention rewrite their things in ways that cause the journalists to go, and dark energy is overturned. And then the poor scientists end up caught in the middle of all of this going, okay, that's not quite what we said, guys. So problem one is good scientists overstating press officers, journalists run wild.
Yeah.
Then we have problem two, which is perfectly good experimental results overinterpreted by the scientists to mean crazy thing that journalists run wild with. So this is where the overturning of the Copenhagen experiment comes in. There was another set of observations about the same time period, maybe a little bit earlier, where they claimed to measure the speed of gravity by looking at the timing of looking at Jupiter and its moons relative to background quasars, and their results just didn't quite say what they claimed that they said. That was probably actually back in 2003.
I remember that. I think I reported on that.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of us covered it, but I know my coverage of it was, this is what they're saying, but if you talk to these other scientists, this is their interpretation of the study. And this is something else that often the AAS does, the American Astronomical Society does, to help journalists, is during press conferences, they'll bring in an outside researcher to do, okay, calm down. This is another way of looking at it. No one run crazy with this right now. And so you have the senior scientists trying to prevent clickbait from getting written, but they don't always succeed. And then the third problem that you run into is just like random shit that gets made up. And this is where you have the pieces that are like, does dark matter have to exist? And they like go out of their way to find whatever randomness they can find that leads to dark matter doesn't have to exist. And this is the pure, unadulterated, no scientist harmed in the forming of clickbait, but science was definitely harmed.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I think that, man, it is so tough, I think, for people, because even if we as journalists, or you as as a scientist is getting sometimes caught by this as well, we rack up as learning experience, but for a lot of people it's really tough. They don't know which way to go and whether who to believe and so on. So it's a really tough road to go. And
I've seen scientists who try and like swat down the bad stories, like you're killing mosquitoes on a summer night, and just like it's impossible to kill all the mosquitoes, you're never going to find and kill off all the bad articles. And at a certain point, it becomes more worthwhile to spend time trying to educate those who will listen than to fight against bad journalism, because bad journalism makes a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And we can't fight against the income-making power of bad journalism.
Yeah, and that is absolutely a driving force. And once again, I mean, as as a person who runs a site, and we're funded by advertising, although less and less every day as the Patreon campaign gets bigger and better. And if you're listening to this, patreon.com/universe today, is it's moving us towards being able to fund this without advertising, which would be lovely. I wish we could. When a site when an article does go viral and you really see it going all over the internet, it can be a dramatic juice in your revenue. So much more page views. I mean, there is. If you're not trying to do the right thing, there's enormous incentive to do the wrong thing as often as you can. And so, because I want to make a long-term career, and because saying things correctly is important to me, even when it doesn't necessarily bring me revenue, I work really hard at trying to get it right. And if we get it wrong, then we fix it or we delete the story or whatever. But absolutely. And so I've seen lots and lots of websites surpass us because they do go the clickbait route. I mean, it's massive. And at this point now, even Facebook has been trying to turn down the volume of the clickbaity type stuff because they know it's not really doing them any favors. So yeah, it's
an ugly world out there, and the truth is hard to find.
So if you're giving advice to scientists, people that in your field, what can they do to try and sort of once again, I mean, do you benefit from work that you're doing going viral?
Oh yeah. And it's the kind of thing that your institution likes. Everyone likes it when your stuff goes viral. And it benefits your career long term to have your name associated with good science that goes viral. Now, at the same time, the poor woman whose research on extremophiles living in Mono Lake, where she initially thought that they might not have DNA with the same chemical structure, I wouldn't want to be her, because she went out in a press conference and said, we may have found this thing. We want other scientists to help us prove or disprove what we found. We don't have the equipment we need. So we're laying this out there, asking the scientific community to help us.
Yeah.
That led to a million headlines.
Arsenic-based life forms discovered.
Yeah, that.
Let me just see what we put on Universe today.
And I wouldn't want to be her for a million years, because she's going to go through the rest of her career as the woman who didn't find arsenic-based life forms, but had a press conference that everyone remembers as her announcing arsenic-based life forms, which is not what she announced. So it's a double-edged sword. You want publicity, but you don't want misinformation.
Okay, you're going to love this. So here we go. We've got NASA-funded research discovers life built with toxic chemical. Then we've got NASA life discovery, new bacteria makes DNA with arsenic. So totally fell for it. And then we've got the replication of life experiment not successful so far. And then we've got backlash feedback on NASA's arsenic findings. So that was sort of 4 stories over a couple of years that we wrote.
I have fantasies of having time again to get back to blogging so I can blog about all of these caveats that annoy me because science.
So right. So you were talking about how you would hate to be that researcher. So what could she have done to have stopped people from taking her research the wrong way?
At the end of the day, you have to have a true statement that is the most likely thing to be restated. And for her, I'm not sure she could have come up with something more interesting, but that's what was needed was the NASA-funded scientists asks community for help replicating work. That needed to be the call to action, not the NASA-funded scientist finds life based on arsenic. And so somehow you have to get that underlying truth to be the memorable point. And part of it means you have to sound like a broken record with every third sentence is, we don't know if this is what we found. What we really want is for people to see if they can replicate what we did. And she tried, but sometimes the siren song of clickbait and the revenue it brings is too great to walk away from.
Well, I mean, we had that a couple of years ago with the messages moving faster than the speed of light, and it came down to a bad cable connection.
Yes. Yes.
So again, same situation, right? It's them, and I think they were pretty upfront about it too. They were like, "We're pretty sure this is a bad cable, but this is the result that we've gotten. Can you help us figure this out?" But you know, you've got that original researcher, and then you've got the agency that they work for, the university, the space agency, whatever, the laboratory, and they want public relations. They want press mentions. So their job is to take things to juice it up, to make it look better than it is. And so even if she was at the press conference saying we need people's help, and she probably did, there's a ton of people trying to then boost it up higher, right? We're not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
And this is where, unfortunately, scientists have to learn how to become more tech savvy and more media savvy. And one of the things that I've done my entire career is press releases usually don't go out until I've put them through 3 or 4 different drafts. And it's so exhausting at a certain point to find yourself as a PhD researcher realizing, well, if I want my science to get communicated correctly, I need to have a social media presence.
Yeah.
If I want the mainstream journalists to do a good job, it is on me to learn what makes a good press release.
Yes.
Because that means that now I have to do the job that someone's getting paid full-time to do as a press officer. I have to do the job of someone who's getting paid full-time to be the social media person. And it's annoying and exhausting, but at the same time, if I don't make that effort to make sure that the messaging is correct, and this is something you see Alan Stern doing, you see Carolyn Porco doing, you see these big names, Mike Brown, again, he does amazing work with his Twitter feed.
Yes.
And his blog, and these top scientists have become top communicators to control the messaging.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because Carolyn Porco is a great example. But I mean, you just mentioned 3 names who I am in regular contact with, right? So Carolyn Porco, you know, back 2001, 2002, 2003, when I was first starting what I was doing, I was writing articles, and when I was crediting NASA, I was saying NASA JPL, and Carolyn, you know, Dr. Porco would email me and said, also, when you give credit, you should include our agency. We're the ones who do the Space Science Institute. You should include us in the as part of the credit. I'm like, okay, no problem. I went back and I fixed it, right? And I've talked to Alan Stern many times. I've talked to Mike Brown. They're open. They are watching to see how their science is being received by the public, and they engage with the public and they engage with the journalists. Right? They're not just like they release the stuff and then they hold their hands up and go, we have no way to control what happens next. They know that all you have to do is you have to email one of us and say, you know, you're messing this up. That's incorrect. What you were saying on that title is wrong. I recommend that you fix it, please. That we as journalists want to do the right thing. You know, we want the traffic, but we also want to make sure that we're getting the science right. And if we're getting the science wrong, you would hope that they would take that advice. So I think that's great. And I think being more active, involved, and engaged as a person that is making the news is of enormous value. And I think if more people can follow in their footsteps and learn from that, learn from what they do correctly, the better they're going to do. So. Yeah,
it's a long, hard road, and at the end of the day, a PhD in astronomy doesn't prepare you to be a science communicator, but it turns out that being a science communicator is what gets your science listened to.
Fantastic. All right, well, thank you so much, Pamela.
My pleasure.
All right, hold on.
And now we save. We...
Save. 427.
Yep.
My hard drive can handle it.
Your poor computer.
It's kind of full. Yeah, well, my poor computer. You know, I didn't drop any frames, and we laid down some monster traffic, so outbound. Okay. Alien. So Sean Kenny in the chat. Alien megastructures. Yeah. Which is so true. Difference between... So John Suffield says there's a big difference between a journalist wanting to tell the truth and a tabloid hack.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a difference. And you can really tell when a person kind of knows their science and is, done this enough that they can sense what's right and what's wrong, and the people who have no idea and they're just rewriting a press release or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
David Joseph Wesley asks, why are humans drawn to clickbait lists? For example, 110 Messier objects. You must see. Number 3
we want
shocking.
to know what we're missing out on. And I mean, for reasons that I go back probably to some instinctual herd pack alpha dominance thing.
Yeah.
There's this... Which of us haven't had the schadenfreude of, look how badly this child star aged, and
you click those
who
ads.
hasn't enjoyed looking at the pictures of the Buran orbiter that is going to pot in the former Soviet Union, and
yeah,
we are all darkly curious.
Yes, I mean it's almost like. But now we're at the point where there's been so much clickbait that we're almost kind of numb to it. Like, I think people are starting to get numb. Like, I don't care what that, which of these celebrities is dead anymore, Arjun is asking, what about scientists who are presenting dubious results on purpose, like climate change deniers? That's a whole other level of nightmare, right?
Yeah. That goes into that third category of stuff that is just made up.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, but I mean, we find ourselves in this really difficult climate issue for this very reason, that there is people working to specifically debunk and undermine legitimate science, which is just a whole next level of scary. Ilad Avron says, also within the journalistic system, sometimes the journalist isn't the one who decides on titles, but rather the editor. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, again, behind the scenes, I collaborate with a lot of our writers on the titles for the stories that they're working on. So, when you look at the titles on Universe Today, I didn't write the article, but I was there for the title, because the title is like the best part. It's the part that really decides whether an article sinks or swims, and I need to make sure that we get it right. And so I will take a title that a journalist wrote and I will rewrite it because I think it's boring.
And I have to admit, pretty much every single title I have ever written for any publication has been rewritten because I suck at writing titles.
I even rewrite your titles in, you propose them on Astronomy Cast and I rewrite them. Because there's just, there's like, we want to get to the point. We want people to understand what the show is about, what the episode is going to be about, and you are coming from a sort of like, what best... what poetic title best matches the
I like clever wordplay.
Yeah, what clever wordplay is going to, really accurately convey the complex themes that we're dealing with here. And I'm, for me, it's just like a, Hulk smash. That's the way I write titles. It's, I'm not trying to be fancy or careful about it. I'm trying to make sure that when a person looks at that title and goes, I get what this is. I want to participate in that. And that is the difficulty of the title writing. So absolutely, we do that. So Violent Girl 79 says, just finished listening to the Martian audiobook and it was amazing. Are there any similar sort of mostly scientifically accurate books that you can recommend?
Pretty much anything by Kim Stanley Robinson.
Yep. I just
Oh, The
read
Seven Eves. The Seven
just read
Eves.
Seven Eves and I loved it. But boy, listening to The Martian as an audiobook, there's not much better than that. I mean, that was just like everyone I gave that book to. After I finished the audiobook, I let my son listen to it, then my dad, then my wife. Everyone was just like, just gulped it down in one bite. 8 hours, beginning to end. They had all completed the book within a day, so it's hard to beat that book. But yeah, the Kim Stanley Robinson books are great. Was it Spin?
I haven't read that one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. It's tough, like if you want science fiction and you want science, choose one or the other.
Yeah, there are some good ones, but yeah. Moon is a Harsh Mistress is old, but good.
Mm-hmm.
Like really good, and it gets you thinking about things like when we ship food internationally, what we're really doing is shipping water, and countries like China that buy a lot of their food internationally, they have desert climates and they're basically importing water.
Right. Michael Myers recommending Stanley Baxter based on real science. I haven't read any of Baxter's work. Let's see. Ryo-san is saying that the Slack chat is too small. Well, it's not really designed to work on a mobile screen, if that's what you're using it for. I'm now running at 1080, so it's should be high resolution, but you probably need a laptop screen to actually see the Slack chat.
Yeah.
But if I make it any bigger, then everybody gets mad at me. So
it's a fine line.
Change the font size? I don't know. Preferences.
So Dave 3200 is asking if we find a planet killer asteroid heading straight to Earth, who's in charge? Pretty much the UN. I mean, there's actually like international organizations put together to handle these sorts of things, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the UN.
I can't see a way to increase the font. I'll look at that. I'll see if I can do it. Where were we? Boom. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you know, we had an asteroid go by, and NASA's new asteroid warning system gave us like 5 days of warning.
Yeah, that was cool.
5 whole days to put our affairs in order.
Yes.
Yeah. Larry Beckham says, "Don't make the chat better. I can't help it. I can't help myself. I must always make things better." Look at this. We've got a new design for the layout of the show. We've got a nice fancy logo down at the bottom there. You can't see it, Pamela, so you have no idea what this looks like, but it looks
I have a dog that's trying to chew on my chair.
Yeah, there it is. People can't see the dog as well as I can because I see it. Control plus or minus to increase and decrease the font size in Slack. Are you sure? Okay, here we go. Let's find out. Control plus. Boom. One more. That's too much. All right, we'll do that. But then it sort of pushed things to the side. All right, we'll figure it out. Okay. Let's see. David Joseph Wesley puts, for the giant asteroid, I put my trust in Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis. Let's see. Any more questions? Ryo-san likes a new design. Thank you. Don't make it bigger. Sorry. It had to get bigger. It's the font size. Okay. Well, let me know if this works. Much better. Okay, good.
Cool.
So how could we educate, David Joseph Wesley is asking, how could we educate the public better so they don't fall for the faux science clickbait? Is real science not sexy enough for them?
At the end of the day, I think read before you share is rule 1. Rule 2 is if you can't find it from a second source, don't share.
Unless
And-
you're like an expert. That's
Right.
You're definitely in the danger zone. If you, I've used danger zone twice today. Yeah, you said in the weekly space hangout as well. I gotta watch some more Archer. So yeah, no, that's exactly right. That if there's only one source, you have to bring your A game to get to the bottom of this.
Right.
Yes. Tech Tang is noting the translucent bar isn't doing much today. This translucent bar down here, that is true, but it will be put to work next week. I just didn't have time as I implemented this new design. Jonas Sofri's asking, Pamela, what can I do if I forget my CosmoQuest account? Recover your password.
So we're actually in the process of updating accounts this week. So today, I think you should be able to recover, but we're in the process of updating our database. So if the screen changes on you, I'm very, very, very sorry. I think they're actually like taking down CosmoQuest right now and have tweeted about it. It may still be up. It'll be going down in a couple of hours.
Okay.
We figured Friday night most people would not be doing science. We may be wrong.
Move in the chat.
And my dog is trying to like kill my hand.
But yeah, as always, things are changing. Things are being upgraded.
We're in the process of a major upgrade to the site, and hopefully you'll like what you see.
I'm sure we will. Carolyn B is saying, I just remembered Infinite Monkey Cage on BBC. That's a great show. David Joseph Leslie wants a stock ticker on next week's episode.
No.
Yeah, I could put a stock ticker. Hold on. Let me just. What do you want a stock ticker on? SpaceX?
Are they a publicly traded company?
No.
Okay.
No. SpaceX is a private company. In fact, have you ever heard why SpaceX is a private company?
So they don't have to deal with the headaches of being publicly traded?
When they send humans to Mars. Right? So Elon Musk doesn't want any public investors questioning the sending humans to Mars purpose of SpaceX.
Valid.
Yeah, totally valid. I think it's awesome. Lisa Holland asks, can we have an episode about stellar isochrones?
Yes.
What's a stellar isochrone?
It's basically the magnitude color evolution of a star as it ages.
Cool.
Yes, we can do that. I don't know when, but yes, we can do that.
That I would. Your dog. People can't see it. Let me see if I can get the dog in the view if I change the layout here.
Here.
There we go.
Come on up. Of course, he's been like jumping on me the whole show, and right now he's not about to.
Try mine. Chuck. Come on up. Come on, Izzy. There we go. I don't know if you can get my dog here. Come on, Izzy. Up here. Right here. Izzy. Right here. Nope.
Mine
dog's
is much
too
more
short.
photogenic.
Well, I just have a different view here. So, oh, look at that. Oh, that's great. Joshua Tree says, so many of these problems would be solved if Demon Haunted World was required text for every kid on the planet. So Demon Haunted World was my introduction to skepticism.
Really?
Yeah. Like I read that book, and that's what got me into being a skeptic. I didn't realize as well.
Okay, yeah, it was articles by Martin Gardner that got me before that.
Yeah, I had no idea that I was a skeptic. I sort of had all the pieces, but then I read Demon Haunted World, and I was like, yeah, this is exactly right. So if you are like watching the show, you haven't seen Demon Haunted World, proceed. Have we done an episode about water in the universe? I believe we have.
I don't know. We've done 427 episodes.
Yeah, here's how I do this. I go to Google, I type in Astronomy Cast, and then I do the topic. I'm sure we have. Yep, 352, water everywhere. There you go. 363, where did Earth's water come from? 387, water on Mars. Again. So, yep. Yeah, we've covered water.
And there's Logan in the background of your shot.
Oh, people can't see him yet. Hold on, let's see. Logan's head, Logan's shoulder. Logan, the other way. There he
Hello.
is. Hello.
I gotta pick up Chuck.
You gonna pick up the dog?
Chuck, come here. Oh.
And this episode has just gotten silly.
This got weird.
There, dog.
All right. Can anyone guess what kind of dog this is?
Pitbull
Can you
mix?
stay here, Chuck?
No, she's a bull terrier.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Carla's dog. She's not happy. Blake Erickson, as a journalist and a scientist trying to protect credibility, how do you approach concepts that aren't testable, like the simulation concept? Sometimes people even question Musk for mentioning it. Yeah, that is an understatement of how people feel about Musk discussing hot tubs, him getting kicked out of them, and the simulation argument.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so there are times
Dad,
where I just kind of look at people and in my head question the future of humanity and point out that if something isn't testable, it is a belief system.
Yep.
And until it is testable, it is a belief system. And anyone trying to place odds on it is making shit up.
There goes our family-friendly tag. Yeah. So the simulation argument, for example, is a great example where it's a really interesting mind experiment, but it is not testable. So it's not. You don't have to change the way you live your life about it, right? And by all means, I think as we get more and more complicated computer simulations, and if one of those computer simulations begs us to not turn it off, then we might have something approaching evidence that a simulation to that level is possible. But until then...
But all these people who are trying to argue that it is more probable that we live in a simulation than in a version of reality, that is a belief system.
And it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And so you should always question your belief systems. What was the... there was another one. Oh,
And I'm fine with people having belief systems. I'm just not fine with people calling them science.
Right, yeah. Is like... free will versus predetermined determinism, whatever you call it. You know, that there is no such thing as free will, that all of our, you know, that the entire universe is just the outcome of molecules bonking together from that original whatever caused the Big Bang, and that what appears to be that we actually have free will is actually all predetermined. And again, there's no way to really test it, and so you just have to assume that you have free will until proven otherwise.
And this is where I furrow my eyebrows, which I do so much it causes headaches sometimes, and simply go, we can't prove or disprove. Please take that out of the science box. It's like that one clove that gets into the rice container.
Yeah.
It just has to get picked out.
Let's see. What else have we got? David Joseph Wesley says, I believe that I'm going to buy a PlayStation VR and live inside a simulation in my living room. Yeah.
We're okay with you believing that.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, you can believe that, but we know.
I'm cool with that. And great drunken conversations can evolve out of this.
Yeah. But we know what's really going to happen, which is you're going to buy a PlayStation VR, you're going to use it for a bunch of times, then you're going to hate it or get bored of it, and you're going to put it somewhere and it's going to collect dust. That's what's really going to happen. But we actually did talk about the simulation argument on my YouTube channel. I personally find the argument very compelling, but at the same time, because it's untestable, it can go no further than a hot tub conversation that gets you kicked out.
Yeah, exactly.
Stan 60foot asks, can you do an episode on bonkers theories such as string theory, loop quantum gravity, and all the junk science ideas?
No,
we have.
Please don't.
We have, though. We have in the past. We did like
we did episode. These things aren't science episode.
Yeah. And they are, they are not junk science. They are untestable theories.
Right.
String theory, loop quantum gravity. So
They're beliefs with lots of ugly math.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, again, like, isn't it like you can write down the math that proposes a thing, but if it can't be tested in any realm of possibility, but I don't know. Like, I feel like there are ideas to try and test string theory or loop quantum gravity or things like that. Like, and so I think it's important to lay down an initial idea, but don't give it any more credence that that's the way things are, right?
Right.
You know, and it's just, the same goes for, any kind of true statement, right? If you're going to say, here's a thing that could be true, but I don't have any belief that it is, but it could be true, and if you can test it, that would be great, and if you can't, whatever. Tim Ham says, determinism isn't synonymous with predetermined. Before you assume free will, make sure you clearly define what you mean by it. So free will versus not free will. There, that's how I'm defining the terms. Charles says he's a member of the Church of Quantum Gravity. Ramen. Yeah, Rico Roberto says, isn't it just irrelevant if we live in a simulation or not? That's exactly it. Yeah. Any more questions? Do you have any more questions for us? What time is it now? I guess we're at like an hour. So why don't we wrap this up?
We're well over an hour.
Well
at
over
this
an
point.
hour. It's too much fun. Be skeptical. That's the advice that we have.
Out.
Skeptics out. If there was one thing you could test that can't be tested, what would it be?
Multiverse.
Yeah.
I was a little quick on that answer.
You sure were. No, that's a great question. That's a great answer. All right. So once again, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks Pamela for bringing the brain. Thanks Logan for riling up the dogs. Thanks to all the fans. Thanks to the WSH crew for running the Slack chat over here. Somebody in a second is going to post a link on how you can get involved and carry your conversations from the YouTube chat, which we don't show, to the Slack chat, which we do show. And that would be great. So join us every Friday at 1:30 Pacific Standard Time, and for this live episode of Astronomy Cast, and this will come out in the feed probably later today. Chad's pretty fast, actually, to get these things out. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you all next week. Stop the stream.